Newt Gingrich, was a guest on Chris Matthews' show Hardball, in which during the course of the interview, he schools Chris about how horrible President Obama and his policies has been to our nation these last 4 years.
Welcome back to Hardball. Well, 9 months ago, my next guest stood between Mitt Romney and the Republican nomination, only to be taken down in Iowa with a brutal barrage of super PAC ads. Since then, the two have made up, and Newt Gingrich is here in Tampa this week, leading Newt U, a set of workshops for Republican delegates, and he and his wife Callista are set to speak Thursday evening during a tribute to Ronald Reagan. Welcome, Mr. Speaker. You certainly engineered an excellent speaking bot. You've got back here. You got a crew of wild people here. He's going to pay for beer afterwards. Free beers on Newt. Okay, you've engaged in what I consider very problematic rhetoric in the campaign trail. When you accuse Obama, the president, of being a food stamp president, and everybody gets into the birther fun, and there's we don't know what game that Donald Trump's going to pull this week. He says he wants to go on the offensive with the birther talk. Do you have a problem thinking back on it of having used ethnic politics? With terms like food stamp president.
Look, I find your assumption so absurd that it's hard to answer your question. Okay. Let me take the birther thing for a second.
Sure.
What Mitt Romney did the other day, people say, oh, you ought to relax, you ought to be a little bit lighter. So he tells a joke. Now, it happens to be a joke which serves him in a totally different way than you're calculating. It reminds everybody in Michigan that he was born in Michigan. He's a Michigander. Yeah. And the poll that came out this morning, he closed a 5-point gap in Michigan.
Well, how does that justify the use of that reference to birther talk when birther talk has been poisonous?
It was a throwaway line. It's part of the common culture.
Yeah. You think it's funny that the president had to show his papers to shut down the birther talk? He had to go to Hawaii and get his documents released? Do you think that was funny?
I think that it is bizarre that people think that it is a challenge to be able to say, I was born there, here's my birth certificate. What's the big deal?
Because it hasn't stopped. Because we got members of your caucus, the Republican caucus, like Louis Gohmert, and these people that keep talking it up.
But Romney was making, by any reasonable standard, he was making what's called a joke.
First one he ever told.
And it was a joke which actually, no, he just said...
Okay, let's listen to the Romney. Here's Mitt Romney telling the joke. If it's a joke, listen to it. There certainly was a punch to it.
Now, I love being home in this place where Ann and I were raised, where both of us were born. Ann was born at Henry Ford Hospital. I was born at Harper Hospital. No one's ever asked to see my birth certificate. They know that this is the place that we were born and raised.
You know, it's amazing how... you know how African Americans generally, at least the people who have emailed me in the last couple of hours today, how they react to this? Do you understand they have a reaction? They think this is racial talk? That this whole thing about welfare cheats is just relentless stuff.
I think there are a lot of people in America who listen to people like you, who tell them all day, who tell them all day, every day how they
so
should
it's my
see
influence on them.
You just had a panel where the guy who was black was telling the two guys who were white they were nuts.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So
and
the two guys who are white are going, gee, why are you not more sensitive to being black? I think Michael Steele knows he's black. I don't think this is a great shock to him.
But you can laugh about it, but you don't think that you've used it in the past. What's a food stamp president?
Food stamp president's a guy whose policies are so destructive that he creates the longest unemployment since the Great Depression, and he puts more people on food stamps, most of them white, than anybody else. Why do you assume food stamp refers to black? What kind of racist thinking do you have? Wait a second. You're being a racist.
Let me tell you why.
You assume it refers
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because from the beginning of paying attention to politics, Ronald Reagan would talk about the welfare queen who was African American. He'd talk about the young buck waiting in line. Yes, he did. He talked about the welfare queen out in Chicago.
Who was African American.
Yeah.
I don't believe he ever used the term.
No, he didn't say. He didn't have to. He also talked about. Let me try this. How about the young buck waiting in line for food stamps to buy booze with? This is a history we have here, and this lingo is so clear to every African American watch right now.
So we're not allowed to tell the truth about food stamps.
You sit here and chuckle about it as if it's not a game you're playing.
Wait a second. We're not allowed to talk about food stamps because your sensibility tells us that 35 years ago.
No,
Give me a break.
You've got that diabolic smile of yours, and I know you think you're winning here, but everybody out there who's black or white knows exactly the game that's being played here.
Game. You have the worst president.
Oh, that's your
in the last
shot.
No, wait a second. Economically, Yeah, we did put up a chart today at Newt University, which people can get at newtuniversity.com. It shows every recession since World War II. Right. All of them are up here except one. The Obama depression is down here. Okay. Now, is that a racist?
Let me ask you about Romney and what he said the other day. Why would Romney say that Obama is reducing the requirements, the work requirements for welfare checks to excite and energize his base? Wait a minute. Why would he do that? What does that mean?
It means that liberals who hate the work requirement, the 101 Democrats
liberals who hate the work requirement,
101 Democrats who voted against it in 1996.
I think it was Bill Clinton that signed that bill.
That's right. And when he said he would sign it, half the Democrats in the House voted no. Obama was against it after Clinton said he would sign it.
Do you think most Americans are against the work requirement?
I don't think poor people noticed it because I don't think that's in their function. But I think liberals loved it. I think liberals thought, that's right, let's go back to dependency. Why are we requiring poor people to work?
Why would anybody like dependency?
You tell me.
Well, you tell me. Well, you just said they like dependency.
Marvin Lasky wrote a brilliant book called The Tragedy of American Compassion, in which he outlines step by step the degree to which the left dislikes requiring people to work.
Okay, we just had Howard Fineman on the show who talked about how white working women are responding so well to this ad, as dishonest as it is. Do you think they might be noticing that?
What is this editorial as dishonest as it is?
Because every editorial, every fact-checking group in America, every single one of them I checked, it says this ad's dishonest. PolitiFact, all the newspapers have gone through it. You know it's dishonest.
I don't think it's dishonest. I helped write the bill.
No, they get rid of the work requirement. Who's getting rid of the work requirement?
The Obama administration.
You're a perfect spokesman.
No,
you're a perfect spokesman.
Wait a second, Matthews. Why would they have a waiver if they're not going to use the waiver?
Because to get education is part of getting back to the workforce. No, because sometimes it's smarter to put a person to school so they can get a job.
You're allowed to put them in school. That's not a problem.
That's what they did. Okay, let me ask you about this convention. What are you speaking exactly?
Well, I'm speaking, first of all,
what time of night?
Well, first of all, I got 2 hours a day for the next 4 days.
Yeah, but with your school.
University.
Okay.
And Callista and I are speaking Thursday evening. I don't know the exact time because, frankly, with having canceled Monday night, they're shaping it. But we're doing a tribute to Ronald Reagan, and since we did a movie on Reagan, we feel this is a pretty logical thing for us to do.
What changed your mind about Mitt Romney?
Barack Obama.
Go ahead.
It's easy. I mean, my choice for my children, my grandchildren, my country is Mitt Romney or Barack Obama. To me, as a conservative, that eliminates everything.
So whatever justifies the means justifies the ends, the ends justify the means.
If you think you won't agree with this, I think the re-election of Barack Obama is a disaster for this country.
Right, and what about?
I think that Romney is far better for this country.
What do you want Romney to say Thursday night that you haven't heard him say yet? How does he say? Let's put on your political hat, which is generally on your head, Mr. Speaker. Tell me how he turns that middle Thursday night.
I don't think Mitt Romney should play games about trying to be somebody who's not.
Which would be what? What would be playing a game?
Here's the choice. People say he's got to show his human side. He's got to do this. Look, here's the choice.
Well, you know that.
But here's a simple choice for America. You got a terrifically fun guy as president who'd be great to have a beer with, but he's a plumber who can't fix the plumbing, and the house is getting wetter and wetter every day. You got a guy.
How do you know this new plumber of yours is going to come over when you call him?
Because you got a guy who has a tradition of turning things around in business, in the Winter Olympics, as governor, and he's coming in and he's saying, okay, I've got a management personality. I'm actually kind of a CEO. But, by the way, we're going to have 4% economic growth. We're going to create millions of jobs. Right. The country's going to be better off, and we're going to have energy independence for America.
So what's his problem? Why isn't he winning big?
I think he will be by November.
Yeah, okay, well, I think we have a challenge here. The question is, I think you're right about the plumber. The question people have is he going to come over when I need him? Anyway, thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is a problem. We'll be right back from Tampa.